Area, the amount of square units that fill up the inside of a 2D shape. So today we are just talking about rectangles when we're talking about shapes, but area can be talked about in reference to circles or triangles or any other shapes you have. But today we're just talking about rectangles. And so we're going to say today that our shape, and by the way, units, when we talk about units, we can mean anything from inches to centimeters to meters to yards to miles to feet. You can have any of those things. And when we say something is a square unit, it means it's the same size on each side. And so it's how many squares that are an inch long fill in this space. So for instance, if we say that the side of this is 3 inches and this side is 3 inches, then we know that we're talking about a square because we have parallel sides and they're the same size on each side, and that's the very definition of a square. So to find the area, you take the length, or some people might call it the height, or some people might call it the base, times width. That's how wide something is. It gives you the area of a shape. And the area is just this flat surface here inside the square. It's how much space it takes up. So I'm going to erase this part I was just using to demonstrate to show you what area might be, to show you how to fill it in with square units to determine. So if I had a ruler and I measure it and I thought, oh, 3 inches is this big by this big. This is exactly what this means, that you have 3 square inches here, 1, 2, 3, and 3 square inches that fit across. And then all of them fill in the entire space. And to find that, you would say 3 inches times 3 inches, and we know that 3 times 3 is 9. And because I multiplied the numbers, I also need to multiply the units together. So it's going to give me inches squared. You might also see someone write 9 square inches. And so those mean the very same thing. You don't always have to have a square. Sometimes when you're measuring an area, you might have a rectangle. So say for instance my rectangle here is 6 centimeters and this is 4 centimeters. Again, that just means that I have 4 and 6 rows. So I have all of these squares filling in, but I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares filling along the sides, and 1, 2, 3, 4 filling along the top. So I could use that to multiply 6 centimeters times 4 centimeters, and it gives me 24 square centimeters, or centimeters squared. And so that's how you find the area of a shape. Notice it is always talking about inside. I just want to point out that you can have the same area of a rectangle, but it look a little differently. You could have different side lengths. So for instance, we can say, oh, this is 8 centimeters and this is 3 centimeters. Of course, that means that we have 3 going across. I did a poor job of making my lines straight, but let's assume they're straight. So I went back and fixed them just a little. So I'm going to take 8 centimeters times 3 centimeters, and it gives me a total also of 24 centimeters squared, or 24 square centimeters. Okay, and so that's talking about area. And even though I have different lengths, I have the same area. Which leads me to talk about perimeter. Perimeter is the units that measure around the outside border of a shape. And so I'm going to use the very same sizes. So we're just going to call this side 3 inches by 3 inches, just like we did. Now for perimeter, I'm talking about the outside. So I'm talking about 3 square units that fill the outside of this shape. So there's my 3. And then 3 square units that fill the outside over here. So you can see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you're talking about perimeter, you are only measuring around the outside of the shape. So you figure that out by filling in those units. So I have so far 3, 6, 9, and 12. So you could do 3 inches plus 3 inches plus 3 inches plus 3 inches equals 12 inches because we're not multiplying the units together. It's 12 inches all the way around the outside border. Because this is a square, you can say, oh, it's 3 inches times 4 sides, which also gives you 12 inches. Okay? Now, we're talking about the same dimensions that we had up there. We had 6 centimeters and 4 centimeters. Because I know that this side is 6 centimeters, that makes this side 6 centimeters, since the sides are parallel and the same length, which makes this bottom also 4. So I could add 6 centimeters plus 6 centimeters plus 4 centimeters plus 4 centimeters. And that gives you the perimeter, the distance around the outside border of the shape. So 6 plus 6, I know, equals 12. And then 4 plus 4, I know, equals 8. And if I want to add 12 plus 8, I know that's 20 total centimeters. So that's that. Some people might shorten this formula and say 6 times 2, because I added 6 2 times, plus 4 times 2. So you might see that. You also might see someone say side square plus side square, which is the same thing as this. Okay? And so while this has a perimeter of 20 centimeters, the other shape that I had, let's do some erasing. The other shape that I had down here that was 8 centimeters and 3 centimeters, even though it has the same area of 24 square centimeters, it's going to have a very different perimeter because the side lengths are different. So the distance around it takes different. So I'm doing this a little bit differently this time because it doesn't matter what order you add the numbers in. And if you can remember what property that is, I'll give you a bonus points when you come to school. If you can tell me what property that is that says I can switch the numbers around when I'm adding because I will still get the same sum. So 8 plus 3 is 11 centimeters plus 8 plus 3, which is 11 centimeters. And if I add it together, I get 22 centimeters. Again, I can do 8 times 2 because there's 2 sides that equal 8 plus 3 times 2, and I know that's 16 plus 6, which gets me 22 centimeters. And so that is area and perimeter. But I like